Mark Zuckerberg once again pushing for universal basic income, this time after a trip to Alaska where every resident gets a yearly dividend of about $1,000 or more funded by oil revenue. Zuckerberg said, quote, "This is a novel approach to basic income in a few ways. First, it's funded by natural resources rather than raising taxes. Second, it comes from conservative principles of smaller government rather than progressive principles of a larger safety net. This shows how basic income is a bipartisan idea." The tech guru gets to the heart of why universal basic income could be a political reality. It's the only economic principle that people as far apart as socialists and libertarians could perhaps agree on, and it's actually finding some footing in at least one state other than one other state. Hawaii just became the first state to pass a bill to convene a basic economic security working group, which is a big step toward a universal basic income. So is this a utopian dream or a communist hellhole? The party panel is back. Nomiki Konst, Michael Malice, and Lee Carter. This is disaster waiting to happen. Michael.
Well, we've seen this actually in 1934. In 1934, Upton Sinclair ran for California governor under a platform called EPIC, End Poverty in California. And at the height of the New Deal, he lost because everyone was like, wait a minute, every broke person from the rest of America is just going to go to California. You got to find a way to pay for them.
It's called welfare.
Yeah. Oh.
And hey, Sean Penn and your buddy Hugo Chavez down in Venezuela, how'd that work out for you?
Well, okay, very different and also a typical talking point. The welfare that we have is for the billionaires like Mark Zuckerberg. If anybody is going to talk about basic income, it is the millionaire and billionaire class who is living off of the backs of the working people who are making well under what they should be making. It has not kept up with inflation over the past 3, 4, 5 decades, and it's just getting worse and worse. And we have to address this because if we don't have working people surviving, they're going to end up on welfare.
But you know,
that's the problem.
I've got to say, do you know what makes people feel good? Working.
Right.
Let's not give them money. Let's give them jobs. Let's give them opportunities.
Okay, so I'll see you in like 40 years when that happens. In the meantime, we have a real problem. We have a real problem. You can't just create jobs in a second. We've been trying to fix this problem for a long time. You know, the basic income has not kept up with inflation.
But the numbers,
that's why you get a deficit.
The numbers don't add up, though. How do you make...
Tax the rich. That's what you do. Stop subsidizing the wealthiest people in America.
You tax the rich so everybody stops working. When people think that there's a net there, they're going to take advantage of it. And you basically create incentives for people to sit on at home.
And $1,000 a year in Alaska is a far cry from a universal basic income, which would be something like $12,000 or something.
Yeah, there's a big difference. And I mean, bottom line here is I think Mark Zuckerberg is testing his presidential run, which is hilarious. Reading that, when you just read his perspective on this issue, just showed how flawed. It was like listening to no offense, a freshman in college write their first paper on universal basic income. And I'm like, you're running for president? Why are you in Alaska? Why are you in Kentucky? Why are you going to Iowa?
Right.
He's trying to be, well, you know what? He learned something from Donald Trump's presidential campaign and realized that liberals are wildly out of touch with people.
There were no typos in that message. She didn't learn anything from President Trump.
But in terms of, who would have thought that a billionaire who was born in Queens, who has a giant, like, smoke glass and brass skyscraper on Fifth Avenue, would be in touch with people who lost their textile jobs in Southern Virginia? Donald Trump was. And so Mark Zuckerberg is like, I better figure out who these people are who live between New York City and, well, who live outside of the Silicon Valley.
Yeah. He's done a lot, though, to go out there, communicate with people, get to know people. I mean, I don't agree with this policy at all, but he has reshaped Facebook, and he's talking it now about it being one giant community. He's trying to position himself as more than just a robot.
And he's wily. He knows what he's doing. Ask those Winklevoss twins. Thanks, Nomiki, Michael, and Lee Carter.